Welcome everyone, my name is Michael Rearden and this is Coaching in Session, and today we're going to be bringing on a psychotherapist helping us understand a little bit about our mind. Because if we can look at our mind, not just mindset, but looking at our mind and how it correlates to everything in our life, whether it be the individual aspect, whether it be the relationship aspect, the communal aspect, the peer aspect, wherever that focus is, we need to understand that that focus that we're giving something might not be the best. So if we're not focusing the best parts of ourselves, the best parts of our mind, are we really being effective in our day? Can we be effective in our life? Now, the short answer is yes, we can be effective in our life, but can we do the things that we dream of? We have these lofty goals and these lofty visions for ourselves. Sometimes we forget what's truly important to us. We forget the little things that matter the most. Our relationship that we neglect because we're so busy with work. We're so stressed out because of the kids. We have all of these different things to worry about where we will neglect the areas that are good. Maybe our relationship is doing well, so we're going to say, well, it'll be okay for a little bit. Let me go focus on the other stresses in my life. But what happened if you leaned on that person? What happened if you were able to lean on the people who are closest to you to help you get through those moments of stress, or to find someone to put in your corner and to say, I'm needing some assistance today. I waited too long and now I have a bunch of stuff to unpack. We all have baggage. Sometimes people do a good job unpacking it. Sometimes people wait until the last minute. If you're one of those people who wait till the last minute, do not fret. Do not worry. Do not think that, oh my goodness, I'm doing life wrong. There is no wrong way to do life. You get to live life any way you want. But understand that we can be more effective in how we see things. And today, my guest, Katie Wenger, is going to be helping us on our focus and where we should be looking at in the areas of our life. Because again, the world is going to tell us what to do. People are going to push us each and every other way than the way we want to go. Because most people want to go up, but most people are looking down. And if you want to go into a direction, you have to look that way. And you have to be brave enough to look that way and to continue to look that way, regardless of what goes on in your life. There's going to be a lot of challenges that we have to overcome. So today we're going to learn how to overcome those challenges with Katie and myself. Welcome, Katie Wenger, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Today I have you on as a psychotherapist, and you're going to be the first psychotherapist that we have ever had on the podcast. We had psychologists, we had therapists, we had hypnotists, but a psychotherapist is going to be unique to this episode. So we're going to be diving into the work that you do, but in your own words, can you please tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help?
Sure. So I am an individual and couples psychotherapist. I see clients in my office now, thankfully, and some still virtually. And I also produce psychoeducational material. So I have a book coming out, I have a podcast, I have online courses, post a lot of information that can be helpful to others in social media. And really what prompted me to do that was my enjoyment of creativity, as well as looking for a way to share the knowledge and experience I've gained over the past 18 years in session with more people.
You said something that you might have not even realized it, right? You're so happy to be back in the office. And I just recently had to get an office myself because people are starting to get out of that whole virtual world and they want the real life person again. Can you talk about the experience of when you went virtual, and then just the difference in the dynamic of your workflow, and then maybe the problems that you were seeing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first feeling is panic, is how am I going to connect with my clients? And for a lot of the people that I worked with anyway, it was still a pretty foreign concept to do therapy or any type of medical appointments online without going face to face with your clinician or whatever doctor you might be seeing. So it was a scramble, and it really prompted me in a good way to go from my paperwork to electronic health records, which has been a lifesaver, and which also is where I have my telehealth platform. And I had a lot of clients initially be resistant to that and really just trying to figure out the world and what to do with their family and themselves and staying functional. So in the beginning, it was a lot of conversations and move slowly to get clients back into sessions. But once it started happening, I think people were surprised, and I was surprised at how comfortable you can be and how the connection was more important than our location. Although I'm sure we would have all liked to be in person as we were used to. So that was definitely challenging. I thought the most challenging part would be working with couples because I thought one of the things that I always saw helping them was getting out of their environment, coming into my office that was a neutral, safe space that not even just for the confidentiality aspect of it, like people walking in or like you said, the doorbell ringing or, devoting that time. It was the bonding and then they seemed to hear me more like being in person and also get to know me better as a person and feel more comfortable and develop that rapport. So that was my primary concern. Surprisingly, that was able to pretty free flow into the virtual world that I saw some benefits even that they were comfortable sitting on their own couch at home and they were comfortable not having, especially for couples that were really struggling, that awkward drive sometimes to and from the therapist's office. Do we talk about it? Do we not talk about it? Do we make small talk? Do we talk about scheduling? Just kind of coming from what they're doing into that. And I think then it allowed their session to kind of, in good ways, to spread out into their life and their home. There was more of a reminder seeing the physical aspects of their home. And that's where we sat and we talked about those things. So it reminds me, make sure that I listen to her or make sure that I prioritize the way that he receives love and affection, that kind of thing.
I definitely agree with the whole couple aspect. To do it virtual is a totally different beast. But if you have them in person, it seems like it's just, yes, like we can do this. But versus when they're on the other end of the screen, it's like they can have their little bitter things and quarrels. It's kind of like they're just home. They just do it naturally. And to be honest, I don't even think they realize they're doing it. So it is a different dynamic for couples. I have found also in the whole virtual world and seeing people in person, individuals are a little bit easier to coach. It doesn't matter where, but couples, it has to be in office. I found it's just more effective. So I'm so happy that people are coming back in office with you to get that help that they need. And when people are looking for a psychotherapist, what are some of the, I guess you could say, problems that they're going to be dealing with that they're going to say, you know what, I think we need to go see someone?
My personal opinion and what I've seen is that people often wait too long. They wait for those glaring signs that something is wrong here, or we are pretty much fully disconnected emotionally. That's sad because it doesn't mean it's hopeless. It means there's a lot more work to do to get back to that point. But had they stepped in a little bit earlier, they wouldn't have had those same challenges maybe, or the level of those challenges. So I think it's glaring red signs, or sometimes it's comments from teenage or even younger children. Like, why are you guys arguing all the time? What's going on? I'm also seeing when one individual or both, because they're, if they're a family or they've been together a long time, they will have other things come up in their life that they're unsure how to navigate together. And the therapy space helps them talk through that, like the loss of a parent or a move, or one partner starts traveling more for work, and that brings challenges to the relationship. So, and certainly, a good amount of infidelity brings people as well.
Yeah, no, there could be so many different factors that can cause the, I guess you could say, the tipping point. But it is something that if we pay attention to, we can see, hey, something's going wrong. Like we should go fix this or address this. And communication is going to be key. And oftentimes we're just so busy in our days, we don't have time to communicate with our partner or our loved ones because we're just so busy doing what we have to do. We have to go to work. We have maybe the kids and they have school and they have band practice, soccer practice, basketball practice, football practice, just so many different things that we have to do and we juggle. And it's almost like that self-sacrifice where we put ourselves last and we put everyone else first. And we just hit burnout. We just hit stress. And stress is one of those things that many people don't even realize is just creeping in their life slowly. And eventually it just gets so heavy. They're just bogged down. They're like, I do not even know where to begin. I don't even know where to unpack. How do you help people unpack that stress when they finally realize enough is enough? This is too much for me.
Well, you certainly have to walk back that level because it's become overwhelmed at that point. And, their emotions are so intense. Usually they're just physical and emotional exhaustion that it's difficult to know where to begin. So going back through how they got there, one of my biggest pushes is about prioritizing yourself, from the beginning or as early as you recognize it or later, to make that time to prioritize yourself, to fully remain an individual within your relationship or relationships. So it's something that I do try to incorporate for them in bits and pieces starting off. And then as we unpack everything that led to that stress level and that kind of piled on top of each other, we can add more and more times of self care. And for couples, I always recommend that weekly check in. It can be a half an hour, but the best way to make it happen is to have a set time and a set date, and you stick to it unless there's some kind of extreme circumstance. And you're not just sitting down and checking in about what do we have on the schedule this week or how are you doing? How are you feeling? It's how have you felt connected to me this week? What can we be doing differently? Is there anything that you've held back talking to me about this week that we can now talk through?
Yeah, no, connection is very important. What they say, 90 minutes, I believe you need a week in order to have like really
Yeah.
good communication. I mean, there's little ways we can get pockets of communication. Remember, maybe on a ride somewhere, if you're going to the grocery store together, at dinner, things like that. But we live in a world where we're attached to our cell phones. We have technology everywhere. People have TVs in their kitchen now. So it's always some outside noise going on and distraction. So we are not focused on where we can have that effective communication where, okay, let's talk, right? And it doesn't even have to be about, oh, tell me about your week, what's on the agenda. It doesn't have to be work related or parent related. It could just be about, hey, how are you feeling, right? I noticed this morning you were looking down, right? Instead of looking up like your cheerful self. Just those small things. And I think sometimes we miss those small, subtle cues because we have our own problems again. And you said something amazing. You said that we have to look at ourselves first, right? Like filling up our cup first. What is the power in filling up our cup before we look at others and filling up their cup?
Well, a couple of different reasons. For one, if our own needs and wants aren't met, we're not the healthiest version of ourselves. Some of that needs to come from what you get from your relationships and from other people. But a good amount of it can come internally. Internal validation is one example. So it is important to maintain that part of your health, just like you would making sure you drank enough water today and you ate healthy and you went on a walk or worked out. And it is also important because you are, in effect, always teaching other people how to treat you, especially in the beginning of a relationship, but ongoing. So if people see you prioritizing yourself and taking care of yourself, they're naturally, maybe even subconsciously, going to up their level of making sure they fulfill your needs and wants. So it's kind of like a ripple effect. And I always tell people also, it makes you the best mom or dad. It makes you the best spouse or partner. It makes you the best employee or leader. I mean, every role in your life benefits if you're taking care of yourself, and you will be better for everyone else and for everything else that you're doing if you do take that time. And for a lot of people, it's getting over the guilt of putting that time just for themselves. But once they can get past that, they see the benefits and they start manifesting in their life.
Whenever I work with someone and I tell them like to fill up their cup first, they always have this notion of that's selfish, where
Mhm.
it feels like I'm being selfish with me. I'm doing the things that I need, but I'm not worried about everyone else. And I'm like, no, it's not about being selfish. It's about taking care of yourself. Because if you're giving from an empty cup, you're going to hit that rock bottom, that burnout so much quicker than if you were living in abundance. It is a hard pill for them to swallow, I guess you say, or a hard transition for them to make, I think would be a better phrase, because they have to adjust how they were operating. Before they were selfless, and now they're like, okay, I'm going to be very specific in how much I give to someone. I don't think it's selfish. I think it's definitely smart to make sure you're not giving too much away. Not saying that you shouldn't at sometimes, give a little bit more, maybe if you don't even have it, right? Sometimes you're going to get stretched, right? That's just the world we live in. But then understand that you gave a little bit more. And then how can you recoup later, right? So learning how to recover, I think is important too. What are some effective ways that people can recover their energy, recover from stress, recover from the imbalance that sometimes life brings them?
Spending quiet time alone is probably the number one, and probably one of the hardest things for us to do. Because what do you do when you sit down to spend some time just relaxing and, everybody and everything is taken care of? We pick up our phone or we pick up our laptop, or we think this is a great chance to get some work done, or a great chance for me to get back to everybody on text that I wasn't able to earlier. But it's just about putting things down and being quiet and intentional with your time. And whether that's just sitting there in silence and thinking, or looking out the window, or it's, journaling is often a great way to do that. Or if you're a painter, painting, doing something creative where your mind can just be focused on what you're doing, your own internal thoughts, and fulfilling something within you that's been neglected.
We live in such a busy world again. I mean, our smartphones are always there. We always have a new notification on some social media platform, whether it's a like, a comment, someone posted something and we have to see it. We just have to, otherwise we're going to be left out. We just have that fear of missing out, that FOMO. We can get away from technology. We can get away from the habits of social media and being addicted to it. But many people don't even realize that it is an addiction. People think addictions are like drugs and alcohol and smoking and maybe like pornographic material, things like that. But they don't even see like their phone as being as an addictive substance or an addictive material. That addictive nature of that technology, of our technology, can get in the way of our relationships. Because if we have that downtime and we say, you know what? I'm not going to be alone. I'm going to go on my smartphone. I'm going to go on my social media and I'm going to comment my friends' pictures and stuff like that. That time could have been used to re-energizing yourself. So then when you have to present yourself back to your family, your spouse, partner, you are ready, not just like, man, I'm still drained. Because I think sometimes people think, well, if I look at my phone, I'm getting re-energized. But sometimes it can detract from you because there's so much negativity in the world today. And I mean, just going back to where we started, where we transitioned from in person to virtual back to in person, the whole pandemic has caused so much stress in people, has changed the way people think and operate in their life. Now it's kind of like they're stuck in this way of operating now, which is virtual, which is I'm on my phone. Because when they were locked up for 3 months, when it was all right, let's flatten the curve, we are going to be indoors. And what did they do? They watched Netflix. They just did the around the things, played video games, maybe had a movie night, things like that. But really, how much effective communication went on? Because I'm sure each individual or even the kids were dealing with it too, because school was virtual too. They didn't have their friends anymore. They couldn't go out to play sports. All that was taken away from them. So basically, our whole life was upside down for a period of time. And then that transition back is very stressful because they have created a complacency, is what I'm going to call it, in that, right? Oh, I get to stay home and have class and I don't have to listen to a teacher. I can play video games while I'm in class, is what kids did. I can work from home and I can be in my pajamas. So there's all these different things. And I'm sure you probably know the pushback that was happening when people were saying, well, you're coming back to the office. People were like, well, why can't we work remote? Now, there's some companies that said, you know what, let's just keep it remote because then they don't have to pay office fees. But then it's both sides, right? Are we more effective in person or are we less effective in person? As we said earlier, we are more effective in person, especially in relationships. Whether you like it or not, your work is a relationship. You have colleagues, you have a boss, you have people you have to interact with. And if you work by yourself, then it doesn't necessarily matter if you have an office, unless you need to get away from the house. But if you are just working by yourself and you have a space in your home, then it's not going to matter. What I'm trying to say is that our life turned upside down for a period of time. And many people are going to be in that transition phase, even still today. This is 2023. People are still trying to get their life back on track. We talked about stress. We talked about communication. What are some other effective ways that you have found to help people get back on track after something catastrophic has happened?
Well, I think one of the things that's important mentioning with spending your quiet or me time on social media or doing something productive is that you are essentially distracting yourself from thinking about other things. And it's usually pleasant, like maybe if you're on Facebook, not always, because there's the comparison factor. And if you're watching the news, certainly there's the negativity aspects coming in, or reading a news article that's negative. So I think that people have those go-tos to distract themselves from being in their own head, from whatever needs to be processed for you that is uncomfortable. So taking that time, at least using some of it to sit with discomfort, whether it's thinking about struggles in your relationship, or it's thinking about something that a conversation you have to have with someone that you've been avoiding. But sitting in that discomfort and allowing yourself to feel that full range of feelings, because we always will have a need to feel all of it, even the negative feelings, but we try to distract ourselves. We try to, put some toxic positivity on it and spin it and then just tuck it away. But it's always there. So if you don't take the time to think through, explore how you're feeling or reacting to something that's difficult or negative or uncomfortable, that discomfort is going to be there at some level until you do that and resolve it. So that's one of the draws to keeping our mind busy with other things, is because we don't really have to deal with what we should deal with to be a happier, healthier person. One thing to explore, taking a step back a little bit here, is when you mentioned that we feel selfish taking time for ourselves. That is often something that we learned growing up, that is in a lot of families' value systems. You take care of the other family members before yourself. That is intergenerational pattern that you then have to change, so that you're then modeling for your children or the younger generation that there's a healthier way to do this, and it doesn't come from always being the one to give. Sometimes you need to take from yourself, take from other people what they're giving to you, and that's important. I always come back to the basics with clients too, even when they're going through something really difficult, like getting out for a run or getting on the elliptical or going for a walk when you are going through something really traumatic does a lot for your brain and how you're feeling. Even things like making sure we're hydrated, making sure we're eating healthy food, making sure we're eating enough. Those things go to the wayside, especially when you're dealing with something tragic, something really difficult that happened in your life. Divorce is certainly a part of that too. That's a grieving process. That's a loss. On top of that, setting boundaries with the connections in your life, like spending quality time with loved ones and friends that doesn't always focus on venting or negative topics, but sometimes you might steer the conversation, or it might be a hard stop. I don't really want to talk about this anymore today, or I really need to bring some other topics into our coffee date here today. Let's try talking about this, or what are the times that you felt productive this week, or things that went well for you? Because I think, especially in a busy life, when you get together with friends or family members you haven't seen in a while, the focus is on venting, getting all of that you've pushed down out. But if you release that in some of your quiet time and process that, you wouldn't feel the need to. It's a switch within yourself, and it's a switch within the circle that you keep around you, making sure that you're keeping positive, healthy people around you that also prioritize themselves.
Yeah, there's so many things I want to say now because we are so quick to throw things in a corner, whether it be a trauma, grief, stress, whatever it is. We are not equipped today to handle grief, traumas like we used to. If we look at our lifespan now, right, it has increased drastically from when we were like cavemen. 30 years was kind of like a full life. And now 30 years is just starting your life. You're like, I'm 30. I'm just starting. I'm just beginning, right? It's just getting sweet. Now we fear death even more. So we always have that aspect of, I want to live. I want to live. And then when we lose someone like we love, whether it be physically or mentally, like a divorce, that grieving process can take a toll on us. It can beat us down. It can send us all the way to rock bottom, and we are left without any way to live or a reason to live, a purpose, right? We have to refine that purpose, refine that vision for ourselves. When someone's going through like that divorce or that grief or that moment where they're like, what's left? What's left for me, right? They're that deep, they're that dark. What's your light for them?
I think the easiest thing to remember is to remind yourself and allow yourself to return from your emotional brain to your rational brain. So, emotional brain easily comes out, especially when you're dealing with something that's happening in the moment and you want to react. It's best to, if you think you would have a better reaction if you waited until the emotion dissipated and you worked through it on your own before you respond, you will allow your brain to return to that rational part where it doesn't mean it's devoid of emotion, but it's not controlled by emotion. So that can be really helpful. You mentioning going back to cavemen and how we survived and what we dealt with back then, it's part of that is still ingrained in your brain. So there's a pro and con to that, because the con is that something might happen and your brain automatically goes to worst case scenario or to survival mode. And that can weigh you down into spaces where you feel like you can't get out of, or you do something impulsive, fight or flight or one of the other responses that doesn't serve you or the situation best. But the pro is that we have those survival instincts still within us, still as part of our neurological functioning. And we can use that to find motivation, to be resourceful and find conclusions to tough situations, and to also compare present day situations to situations that would have been present back in the caveman day. So we don't have the same kind of challenges or stressors that they had. The ones that we have now can be compared to that in a way, and the strategies that our brain goes to use for that funneled into what could be helpful now.
Yeah, no, that is important for people to realize, because if people are just going to operate in their current way of thinking with high emotions, they're going to just always find themselves in a state of unhappiness or unease, or maybe they feel like they're just not worth something. I always tell people that you can do some amazing things in your life. It's just that you have to refocus. You have to realign the way you think. Sometimes we are thinking in the way of someone else, right? We're growing up. Maybe we think like our parents. Maybe we think like our teachers, or we think like our peers, our friends. Are we being true to ourselves? And sometimes we are, but sometimes we're not. And if you're not in that true way of thinking, you're just going to find yourself always at the other end, unhappy. And I had a dream the other day. It was kind of a funny dream, because I think about this a lot, because I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of blogs and personal development articles, and do a lot of podcast episodes. The dream was, someone asked me are you happy? And I said, okay, that's interesting, because I asked that question a lot too. They didn't give me a chance to answer in the dream. It was just the flow of the conversation was, are you happy? And then they said, well, you don't think about if you're happy unless you're unhappy. And then they said, are you healthy? Well, you don't think about if you're unhealthy unless you get a doctor's note, or you get a bad incident that happens, like a heart attack, a stroke, something bad happens to you. We don't worry about our health. We don't worry about our happiness. We don't worry about our health until something bad happens. And even in our relationship, we don't worry about the status of our relationship until something bad happens. I'm sure you probably have many clients come in. They're like, I was telling him, like, we need to go see someone. We need to go see someone. And he's like, okay, we'll do it. Okay, eventually we'll do it. Not until the point where, she hands him the divorce papers. He's like, whoa, 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 let's go see somebody. It's almost like we are just so focused on what's happening and we're not really being present, truly being present, right? We're not identifying those happy moments. We're just looking at the bad moments. We're not looking at the times when we're being healthy. We're waiting until we are unhealthy. And then it's like, oh my goodness, I need this back in my life. I need health back in my life. I need happiness back in my life. I need love back in my life. So many people, they wait until they get that bad moment. And we talked about it in the beginning, but in your life, in your experience, what was some ways that you have found to be effective or you use today that stop you from waiting to find happiness, to find health, and to find love?
I think recognizing that there's always maintenance to be done in those areas. And it's not just going through life thinking that everything's okay or pushing through things or, having a difficult argument and whether you feel like it's resolved or not, you move forward from it. But there is a deeper theme there. And that's part of what I talk about with the obstacles under the surface is those themes, those things that keep popping up that we don't necessarily know exactly what they are, but we know that they're affecting other things, but we can deal with the surface issues. And it comes back to that old mantra about if you don't grow together, you grow apart. And as individuals, a lot of us are growing and changing throughout the course of our life. So the person that you marry or the person that you're with when you're 25 or even 30 or 35 is not the same person 5 years down the road. And you have to continually get to know that person and how they're growing and changing and find the ways in which you can grow and change together, or else it will naturally form a divide and you'll head down separate paths. And some people keep going like that and are okay with that. It doesn't necessarily feel like peace or happiness to them, but it's better than the alternative, which people automatically think is divorce or separating. Is the other alternative of coming to where you are and figuring out what wasn't addressed then or now and doing that work that's really hard and uncomfortable in the present to bring that relationship back to where the individuals both need it and where you both want it to go in the future.
Yeah, you're right. Like in 5 years, I'm going to be different than where I was 5 years ago, or 10 years, or 20 years. And I can expect my wife to be in the same area as me, right? She's going to go down her own path. And we just have to make sure that our values and our systems are still in place and we are being effective in what we do. And we do have to be diligent in making sure we set time to communicate, set time to understand where are you going, what are your aspirations, because sometimes big changes don't happen immediately. Sometimes it could take some time, right? Especially like career changes. If you're going to college, you want to go get a certificate, it might take a couple years for that to happen. And then your whole life changes because maybe you want to be a travel nurse or you're going to be maybe doing more workshops and you're going to be out of the country more. So there's just so many different factors that we have to look at because where we are today might not be where we are going to be tomorrow. But if we can plan for tomorrow, I think we're going to be in a better place. And right now, a lot of people, they lack that planning aspect to it. And I know some of the work that you do is helping them plan, helping them understand themselves, helping them understand that the relationship can work. You just have to do some work, right? Do that work. But then not only to do the work in the relationship, but do the work on ourselves too. Understand what you need. Because if you just look at your partner saying, okay, well, I want to make them happy. I want to make them happy. I want to make them happy. Even though you're doing all of these things to make them happy, there could be some resentment. Maybe there can be some, well, I don't want you to make me happy. I want to make myself happy. We have to look at all aspects, focus on the areas that need to be focused on. If you need some guidance, of course, look for it. And I know sometimes people, they wait till the last minute. They say, okay, I'm going to do this by myself. And when everything's falling apart, they say, well, I got to find someone. I got to find someone to help. And I know what you do, Katie, is helping people repair that, helping people get back to their true normal, getting back to where it should be, back to that love, back to that health, back to that love and happiness aspect to the relationships, communications, everything. You gave some brilliant answers to all the questions I asked today. I want to let you know that because truly, it's a deep conversation, right? Looking into someone's mind and looking into someone's life. So many things has changed in the past 5 years, okay? Let alone, looking at the span of your life. But just in the past 5 years, our whole world has shifted so drastically. And we have to make sure we have the tools and the resources. And I know Katie is going to be a great resource for anyone who's looking for some balance and some correction in their life. Katie, if you can, please share with us any last words, and then please tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think that people often neglect looking at the positives as well and looking at the wins, which I had briefly mentioned earlier. But for couples, it would look like we are really staying on the same page with parenting, and that might not be addressed or discussed until something goes wrong or they're not on the same page. But recognizing this is the parenting strategy and philosophy and values that we started off with, and we're continuing them. That is pretty great, because just focusing on the things that aren't working or the things that are negative, it doesn't leave you with much in your resource tank either. And it works for individuals as well. And I suggest it at the end of every day. I think even if you've had a day where your to-do list was 10 items long and you got 1 or 2 done, celebrate those moments of productivity and those wins for the day. And you end the day feeling accomplished and re-energized for the next day. And then it also applies to a lifelong perspective and your general happiness and peace as well. So I wanted to mention that so that others can utilize that to keep relationships and keep themselves healthy as well. You can find me at my website, which is higherfulfillment.com. You can find me on Instagram at The Relationship Consultant, on TikTok at Katie Relationship Expert. My website will really link you to all of these as well as all of the products and books and podcasts and courses and anything that you think that you might need. The courses were created especially there's one for individuals and one for couples, but the couples one is specifically designed for when one person in the couple is not ready or willing to enter therapy. And this can start the process of looking at some of the dynamics and looking at some of the needs and wants. Hopefully will lead to couples therapy together if needed.
And I'll put all those links in the description box below so people can easily find you. And I love the aspect of if someone's not ready, there is a process for them to get ready, to get acclimated, because therapy has a bad rep where they feel like I'm going to go in and I'm going to be attacked. And as you can see, Katie has not that demeanor here, right? She is cool, calm, and collective, and she wants to see you both do better, right? So whether you're an individual or you're a couple, right? The goal is your fulfillment. The goal is your happiness, your health, everything being in abundance. And if you're having a hard time making that choice, making that shift, go to her social medias, go to her website, see what she's doing, reach out to her. And then you're going to begin that process to heal and then to begin to get your life back. I want to thank you so much, Katie, for coming on. It was a great conversation today.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for having me again. And it was a great conversation. I learned a lot from you, as well as enjoyed talking with you about these topics also. So it was great.
All right, everyone. I would like to thank you so much for watching that interview with Katie Wenger and myself. As you can see, she's going to be a psychotherapist helping people understand their mindset, understand their mind, understand their life, and the individual aspects of the way they think. Because we can think collectively, but then we also have to look how we're going to be thinking individualistically. Now, is individualistically a word? I don't know. I thought about it and then I said, is individualistically a word? And I said, well, today is going to be a word. Because, yeah, we can have the aspect of being an individual, but individualistically, right? We have that mindset. I'm going to do this alone. I'm going to face this alone. I have a problem. It's my problem. But we have come from our ancestors who, if they had a problem, they did things collectively. But now we have become so singular. If we have a problem, we don't need to go see a doctor. We just can go on our smartphones. This is what's wrong with me. Google tells us what's wrong. We don't need people the same way we used to need them. But it doesn't mean that we can't still have those same relationships. People fear going to the doctor. People fear going to a therapist. People fear someone helping them because they feel like they're relying on somebody. They feel like, oh, I'm defeated because I can't do it by myself. You didn't go to war in the medieval times by yourself and saying, all right, I'm going to take over this castle by myself, right? I got one trebuchet, I got a catapult, I got some other things, right? Got a horse, some hot oil. Guess what? If you're going against the army, you're going to be severely outnumbered, outmanned. Not saying that you can't win. You might be able to pull it off, right? I'm sure you see like Rambo and things like that, right? We have that type of mindset now. I'm going to do it by myself. I'm that lone warrior. I'm not saying that you can't be a lone warrior. I'm not saying you can't be an individual in your own rights and make your own life and have those successes in your life, because you can. I understand that. But what if you looked at the people around you? You look at the quality of the relationships around you. Are they good? Because I talked about it in the episode. We don't pay attention until something's wrong. Are you happy? You don't pay attention until you're sad. Are you loved? You don't pay attention until you feel unloved, or until you get the divorce papers, or until there's some type of infidelity. Do you feel safe? You don't think about that until you are threatened. Are you healthy? You don't think about that until maybe you have a heart attack, or something is not working the way it used to. You have a creak in your leg. You have more headaches, migraines. What is that? It's not old age. It's going to be the aspect of if you are going through life the way you should be going through life. We should be paying attention at some point, at some areas in our life. Many people fail to do that. Many people fail to pay attention. I'm not going to sit here and say that I have never been on that other end. I don't think about my happiness sometimes. I think about what I have to do. I don't think about my health sometimes. I think about what I need to get through that day. I don't think about my love or my relationships around me. I say, well, look at me. What do I need to do? Me. I'm worried about me. And I found that if I just worry about me, eventually that me is going to be very alone. So at some point, I have to look on the outside of me. And we talk about filling our cup. There's a difference between filling your cup and then focusing on me. We talk about the idea of being selfish. There's the idea of being selfish and then understanding about filling up your cup. When you make it just about you, yeah, maybe we can be selfish. But if you're doing things that you know you need in order to feel full, is it at the expense of someone else now? Are you draining someone else in order to get your cup full? Because a taker will take until there's no more to take, and a giver will give until there's no more to give. We do have to have that aspect of knowing how to fill up our cup, but then we also have to have that aspect of knowing if we are just being selfish. There's a difference. Now I know emotions can come into this, and emotions are typically what brings up the selfish type of thing. Oh, you're being selfish, right? You're just focused on your emotions, right? Because the other person doesn't realize maybe how much stress that person has. We all have different roles in relationships. We all have different obligations in our life. Not everyone is going to have a smooth, easy, breezy life. But if you're giving yourself more stress than what is necessary, because maybe you don't have to go to work. Maybe you can stay home, take care of the kids, but you want to go to work, so you're adding more stress. Maybe you're around toxic people. And just being around those toxic people, you are giving yourself more stress. So you have to ask yourself, what in my life is good? What in my life is bad? What adjustments do I need to make? And what things are going good? Because if you are living a really good, solid life right now, keep on going. No one's telling you to change. But if you have areas that can be improved upon, why are you waiting? Why are you not taking action? Why are you remaining complacent? Get into the mindset that's going to lead you to better. Don't wait until something is broken. Don't wait until the last minute. Take action today, because today can lead to so much more. So reach for that more. Find the help you need, whether it be myself or Katie. Get the help that you need in order to make some adjustments. I encourage everyone to check out Katie again. Her social medias are going to be there. Her website is going to be there. Check out what she does, because she's helping people, again, understand themselves, realigning themselves, and getting through those moments of grief, trauma, and deep despair. Because we will all face that at some point in our life. You just have to make sure that you're equipped to handle it. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.